Elaine, welcome, welcome, welcome. Oh my gosh, I can't say enough things about Elaine. Elaine has been my editor. She has been my book coach. She has been my counselor. She she has gotten me through this journey. There has been some really traumatic things that have come up from this that she's really already started bugging me about. You need to write about this stuff because you're going to be able to help other people. We'll get there. I have to get over this traumatic experience first. But Elaine, but Elaine, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad that you're
Oh,
here.
thank you so much. And I'm so happy to see Jane is out there. And I'm sure Linda's garden provided some inspiration for the garden analogy in the book. Um, even though I don't know you, Linda. Well, I'm so happy to be here. I'm so proud of you for already making it to the number one new release in your category. I just looked at Amazon and I thought, holy moly, that is wonderful. And I'm sure you'll make it into some other categories too, because that often happens with the books as they rise through the charts. And Jane is so brilliant at the book descriptions for Amazon, but the book itself is brilliant. I mean, your ideas reflect decades of experience on the front lines of the American workplace. And one of the things I wanted to ask you about, because you have a unique vantage point, is what are the number one issues right now in the workplace, and how do you see this book as helping people to address them, whether they're a boss or an employee?
Yeah. That's a great question. So the number one issue right now in the workplace is engagement, right? There's so many things that are going on in what I call the macro economy or the macro environment right now, which impacts organizations and people, individuals. There's so much change and it's happening so quickly. There's a lot of instability. Organizations are not feeling as safe to people as they have in the past. And so leaders are really in discomfort all the time because of all the change. And they really don't know how to interact sometimes with where people are at. They just want to focus on the work. Let's just focus on the work. Let's just focus on the logical. Let's just focus on the things that I can control, when they really need to be a little bit more open and really understand where their team is operating at this point, and how they're feeling about things. We don't like feeling. Like sometimes we just don't like feeling. Doesn't belong in the workplace, right? Elaine, and we have talked about this, right? Feeling doesn't it has been invited in more now than ever before. But here's the thing about feelings. We do not, as human beings, make decisions based off of logic and facts. And so a lot of leaders want to just run their organizations by bottom line. These are the numbers. This is the productivity we need to get done. Get it done. Okay. You may dot your I's and cross your T's, but you are not going to get a high performing, highly committed, strong retained talent pool if you're running your organization like that. Because regardless, understood, people are getting a paycheck, but that's not the only reason that people work. People work because they want a purpose, right? And I talk about that in the book. I'll back up a second. There's five main things when we think about this book, right? It's first off is connection, and I'm making a lot of conversation around connection because it is one of the most powerful things that a leader needs to do to understand who they're working with on their team. Do you make when you're cooking? Do you understand the how fresh your vegetables are and how fresh your meat is and things of that nature that are going into the things that you're cooking? You know all the freshness and all the little things about the things that you're cooking, right? So why would you not know all those little things about people that you work with every day and that really help you depend on your own livelihood by the success of the organization? So it's important for you to understand that. What's going on in their lives? Who are they? What are they motivated by? Everybody's not motivated by money. Some people, of course, we need money in order to be able to sustain ourselves, but we also need to feel like there's a reason for us to be at work. And is this the thing that we love to do? Am I valued as a human being? Right? And so if we think about these five stages, this is the connection piece. Then assessing the team. Who's on the team? How do they work together? How do I make sure that everyone on the team is working in their strengths and some of us in our weaknesses, because they can eventually be strengths. But the only way you know that is by knowing every member on your team. The other piece that's needed is value. Right? Because I know I jumped into this, but I'm going to keep going with it right now. But the other piece is value, right? It's making sure that You understand how valuable every member of the team is. Everybody, no matter what differences they have or how differently they work. Listen, I'm one of the most neurodiverse people out there, okay? It doesn't mean that I have some kind of deficiency. It just means that I work differently. The environment in which I thrive may be different than others. Maybe when I get stressed, it looks a little bit differently on me because I have, not only do I have OCD, I also have ADHD, right? But I don't claim that stuff as being what defines me, but it's the things that comes up in my behaviors. And if my leaders really took and paid attention when the quirkiness shows up in me, then they're going to understand, okay, well, this is an environment that's not going to be great for her. We may need to change it to something else. Instead, no, you, Frederica, need to change. And that's not how it works. That's not what you're going to do to get the best out of the people. So you need to value everybody where they're at. And once you've done that, purpose, everybody needs to understand why they're sitting there making the widget. I don't care what the widget is, whether it is a literal widget or whether it is a marketing plan that they're putting together or whatever it is they're doing, but they need to understand the purpose, not only of what they're doing, of what the team is doing, how it fits into the overarching goal. When all those things are in place, you're going to have a high performing team. And I gave you some examples even from in the book, from things that I did in each of those categories and other leaders that I have worked with over the years, very successful people that have used these things as well that I have seen that have come into play. And so when you ask, why now, what is it that's really happening? The connection isn't there. Everybody is running scared and they're taking care of themselves. But the only way we're going to make it together is together. Right? That's really the only way. You're stronger when you're together. You really are not. You're more vulnerable when you're operating alone. And the better leaders know that. Yeah, more
It
successful.
seems so revolutionary, Frederica, because we've all been trained to, keep everything so businesslike in the workplace. And they say bring your whole self to work, but it's only that nice picture from the family barbecue.
Right.
And
Exactly right.
they don't want the whole self. And yet I agree with you, in the age of AI, things are so technical and we're so removed from one another. Sometimes you'll be sitting in one office and emailing a person in the next office, or on a Zoom call with someone that you could actually go talk to face to face. How do people take the first step to break out of being in those silos and actually find the courage to reach out to the people that are around them, who probably have a fascinating story if only we knew what it was?
Yeah. We have to be motivated to do better. I mean, it sounds so simple, but I feel like we need to be motivated to do better. If we continue to do the same things the way that we've always been doing it, we're going to continue to get the same result. And so we have to be motivated. And whether that motivation is, I've been doing it this way for so long, I'm not feeling, I'm really not feeling energized by this anymore. There's countless people that I can talk to that say to me, even when they have the remote environment and they have to come into the office, there's no purpose for me to come into the office. I don't understand why I'm coming into the office. I got to tell you, I'm not saying that everybody should go back in the office, but I'm not taking a stance on that either way, right? Because I think that everybody's situation is different. But I do think that we have the opportunity to leverage the relationships that are around us. Humans were created for connection. And what happens is when we continue to sit in our comfort zone, it's kind of like we're sitting in these little, to your point, these little silos, our little cocoons. And what happens in the cocoon? Well, in the cocoon, we're creating, we're forming, but we're never going to be able to become the butterfly, right? And we can't become the butterfly until we come out of the cocoon. So you're only going to be able to get so far being in the cocoon. This is going to be your limitation. It's just as far as my hands are coming together and going out, right? About that much. But when you spread out, that's the opportunity to be able to touch more and do more and be more. We cannot flourish if we continue to stay in a cocoon. And you might say, well, I mean, come on. Doesn't have anything to do with me stepping over and talking to another person. You don't know. That person could be the catalyst to your next career. You don't know. Somebody just is what we may look at as insignificant. I can't tell you how many insignificant connections I have made that have turned into be suddenly moments. And I mean that. Just teaching a class, somebody that I may have touched by something that I said to them, never even spoke to them, after class, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3 years later, reaching out to me because hey, I thought of you. I think you're brilliant. I need you to come and do this program. Or I need to talk to you about something that's happening. You don't know how you're touching other people just coming out of your comfort zone. So I know that was a long, you can tell I'm passionate about it. It was a long description, but I hopefully the point got across. But that's, I really feel
Oh,
like people
oh,
need to.
yeah, absolutely. I loved it that you called it courageous curiosity because there is sort of an element of courage. And you shared, I know some of the stories in the book were a little traumatic to recount, from even from your own career. Do you want to give some examples of what this looks like in real life? There were some wonderful case studies. Maybe share one of them about courageous curiosity.
Yeah, yeah. So, when I'm thinking about courageous curiosity, an example that I can think of is actually being bold enough to step up to a leader that maybe is more powerful than you think that you should be having a conversation with, right? Just to even tap into them and ask them questions about anything, how they're doing, how the company is doing. It's just starting a conversation. The other piece is when you're maybe working with somebody on a team, and I think this is where it shows up the most, and there's somebody that you do not get along with on the team. There's something about them, the personalities, they just don't mesh. But being able to say, you know what? I'm going to try to make a connection with this person, regardless of how it's going, because we've got to get whatever X, Y, and Z done. And recognizing I'm going to try to meet them where they're at, and realizing when you start to have a conversation, you have more in common than you realize. I mean, that happens more than not. There may be a particular example that you're thinking of, Elaine. I got a lot of things rolling around in my head right now. So if there's one of the stories that is really sitting with you, just give me a little
Oh,
snippet so I
sure,
can throw
sure.
it
Yeah,
out there.
there was one that
There
you
were so
shared
many.
where there was somebody on your team who seemed to be undermining you in all the meetings, and then you started asking questions, and it turned out that she had done all the things that you were being asked to do, but you didn't know that those were her responsibilities, and so you
Yeah.
asked questions to
Yeah.
try to figure out what was actually happening with her instead of making assumptions.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I love that story.
That's actually a client of mine, right? That was I know exactly what you're talking about. That was actually a client of mine that took over. She had taken over a position um, for about 10 months or so. When she came into the role, she didn't realize all the dynamics that existed because she took over this team. There was a person that then reported to her that was there was a person that had reported to her, and they were in charge of that team before she got there. But there was a lot of challenges with the way that this person communicated, and she was doing a lot of little undermining types of things. She was taking control and actually having meetings outside of meetings and things of that nature. And what happened was, to the person that she was reporting to, was very kind of guarded about this, and she wasn't sure. She thought it was being very undermining until we started having a conversation. And I'm like, well, why is she doing that? What are the questions that you need to ask? And this is some of the things that we were talking about. Asking, why did you feel comfortable making that decision without including me? Why did you feel comfortable meeting with this team without me? And being able to understand. And what ended up coming up from that was, she realized that the person had been doing this all along, and that was a position that she had actually applied for, was not able to they weren't going to hire her for the role. They hired this other woman. And so she recognized that what she was dealing with was somebody that was trying to deal with grieving this loss, or not being able to get this position that she thought she deserved. And there was some resentment that was going on there. But her ability to ask questions, why, getting a little bit more curious and leaning into the discomfort that was coming from this woman that was clearly guarded, clearly didn't have any love for this new manager, and was very undermining to her. But her to step into the middle of that, on my direction, and really helping her walk through that, and making this person accountable for the decisions that they were making. Because when you have to ask somebody why they're doing the behavior that they're doing, they're immediately having to take accountability, because they're going to have to account for what the behavior was. It doesn't matter what you meant by it, the behavior was there. And so over that time and asking those questions, they were able to build a better communication. But that person clearly is somebody that needs to leave the organization. But now that leader has more of a context and perspective and understanding that it isn't all about her, that the person has a personal thing toward her, but it's how things happen. And so she needed to handle her with a little bit more thoughtfulness and accountability so that they could get to a place where this person could be thriving in another role that's going to be better for her. Yeah.
One of the things I loved was you told people exactly what to say, because some of these conversations are so delicate. And I was about to ask you, what's keeping people from doing these things and, and asking the question. I think that is one answer. It's just they really don't know what to say. They don't even know where to begin. And you have so many specifics in the book that tell people what to say next. Are there any other things that you see holding people back? And if they're listening in on this, how can they overcome those hesitations and become a better, more inquisitive leader?
Mm-hmm. You know what, Elaine? It really boils down to the fact when you have to move into conversations like that, difficult conversations like that, it's more around conflict. It means it's kind of a conflict because you're not comfortable with whatever the reaction is going to be from that person. And so how do we get beyond being afraid, having fear of the conflict? And when I say fear, a lot of times we fear the unknown, right? We know that the energy is palpable sometimes, right? And having to deliberately step into a conflict, 95% of the people do not want to do that. It's one of the bigger fears. And the fear is you do not have control when you're talking about conflict. When you are in a high emotional situation, you do not know what the other person may respond with. And most leaders, not all, but a good majority of them, whether it's conscious or unconscious, like to be in control in most situations. And the way that they can do that, instead of reacting when a question is asked and somebody may have a reaction to it, hear what's being said to you. Don't personalize it. What are you curious about that's causing the reaction that you're getting from the person in front of you? Sounds easy, not easy. We have to train ourselves to not react, but to pause and ask. Because again, it is about holding others accountable for their behavior. And so if you're asking a question of someone's behavior and the response is something heightened emotion, we know we need to pause. We might need to take a beat and come back to it. But the other piece is you don't leave it there. We have to lean in and say, what caused the reaction? Why did you respond in this way? And you're going to have to get a response from them. And then you're just going to be able to just continue to be curious. You're not trying to fix it. You're trying to understand it. You're not trying to fix it. You're trying to understand it. One more time. You're not trying to fix it. You're trying to understand it. And if you can put yourself in that mindset, fixing makes us frustrated, brings us to a place of emotion. Understanding gives us more grace and it gives us more patience to lean in.
I want the t-shirt with that slogan. That's a really great mantra to live by. So what is the result? You've had a chance to track people who you've worked with in some cases for decades to see what the results are of practicing inquisitive leadership in their own careers. Where do they end up as leaders as a result of using these tools and using the framework? And how can they figure out even, what can they use the assessment to even figure out where they've progressed to measure that?
Yeah. So all to those questions, yes, and yes. And so when we're thinking about what it is that comes from this, right? And so one of the things, Elaine, that I want to make sure, this came so organically. It came from you asking me so many questions that we recognized, oh my gosh, there's a system to this thing. There's a system to this thing that I use that, very unconscious of. And so what I can tell you has happened from that is you have leaders that are more confident, right? I'm seeing more confidence in them, confidence in their abilities, confidence in the process, right? They're showing up with more patience. they're showing up with more vulnerability. And I don't mean that in a weak sense. I mean that in a, you know what? I'm open to where this is going to lead us. And what ends up happening is that it creates other inquisitive leaders. The way that leaders respond and react in situations where they're growing, that is what people that are, being led by them are seeing, and they're learning how to do the same thing. So you're finding more confidence. You're finding people that are more comfortable in the pause, and you're finding people that are way more empathetic and provide way more grace to people that other people may write off because they recognize the grace that was imparted into them, even with working with me, right? Because I'm not just gonna, okay, X, Y, and Z, this is how you do things. Okay, great. And I'm supposed to agree with you all the time. And that's just not how I operate. And anybody that's ever worked for me knows that that's not how I operate. And that has made people be accountable to where they're at because I ask the questions. And so the way in which I teach, I work with them, they in turn start to do that with others, which teaches others how to do that with others. And so they get greater communication, more confidence. They're just in a better place. You find people that are leaders and not managers, probably the better way to describe it. And on a high potential track, right? It doesn't happen overnight. But when it does happen, it sticks.
It's been so great to see the case studies and the outcomes, of when people applied the techniques, how much easier it became to not have to force solutions, to
Yes.
ask the question and collaborate with someone instead of being a dictator, and coming in and having to force something from on high. As we get away from more hierarchical types of leadership, I want to be conscious of time because I know there are other people who are part of the program. So I just wanted to do a quick time check because you and we could talk all day.
Keep it going. We keep it going. I have a hard cutoff time that I can push this to, so you keep on going because I think it's good. I think folks may be
Oh,
pulling
good.
from
Well,
this. Yeah.
I think my final major question was about the assessment because a lot of times I read books on leadership or business and I'm like, okay, this is all great, but where do I start? How do I even know what I need to work on? How do I know what I don't recognize about myself? So for people in the audience that are eager to practice this, how do they use the assessment? This was something new that you developed as we worked
Yeah.
on the book.
Yeah.
So tell us a little more about the thinking behind it and what we can do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had to create the assessment because all my L&D people out there know we're obsessed, right? We're obsessed with assessments, and even as leaders, we're obsessed with assessments. One of the greatest gifts you can give yourself as a leader is self-awareness. And we gain so much self-awareness from assessments. And so I created a very simple, right now it's a very simple assessment that asks you a series of questions. And what will happen when you get the book, you'll look in the back of the book, there's a little QR code there. Scan that QR code and you'll be able to sign up and get the assessment sent to you. It's a little manual process, but it's a writable PDF that you can put yourself through. And then there's 4 different types of inquisitive leaders that you will test out to have more proficiency at, right? So there's going to be one that you're a little bit more proficient at the other. But here's what I would say about that is when we think about the assessment, and let's just say your assessment comes and it shows that you're strong at connecting, but not necessarily strong at purpose, right? But not to say that, oh, you know what? Or even better, cultivating performance, I am strong. Okay. But if you're not strong in connection, your cultivating performance is at risk. And so the thing that the assessment shows is where are my strengths and where are my weaknesses, because they all work together. And it's not to say that you are going to always test out to be one big strength. No, we as leaders, we ebb and flow. And as we get stronger in one thing, it usually counterintuitively balances with something else. And so, and also the things that we're exposed to as leaders and in life change. And so even as you take this assessment, you might take it now, you may take it a year from now, it may show up differently because you're in different situations that are stretching you. And so the assessment actually will just show you of these 5 categories: connecting with others, assessing your team, being able to value people in a really strong way, making sure that people understand their purpose, and cultivating performance. These are all areas that at any point in time we could be stronger at one thing and another, and it's always an ebb and flow. But what I love about the assessment is it'll show you where you pan out and then what things you can do in order to be able to improve. But even better, there is a membership that you can join, and we're going to get to that in a little bit, that can actually help you to take this and put it into practice with other leaders. Because one of the things about leadership, Elaine, the higher you move up in an organization, once you move from an individual contributor to a supervisor, and then from a supervisor to a people leader, and a people leader to an organizational leader, and you keep going up the chain, it gets lonelier and lonelier. Right? And so what I find with these cohorts that I work with, and I've worked with cohorts from all over the world, is that they really stay in touch with each other, because they're like, oh my Lord, I don't have anybody to talk to. And so why do I say that? Because once you've taken the assessment, you kind of understand where you're at. And if you join this membership, we have this awesome Slack channel that people can actually go in and talk about what's going on with them. Guarantee you there's other leaders that are going through what you're going through. And so just being able to understand yourself a little bit better, and what it means as an inquisitive leader, and how that shows up for you on a daily basis, is just going to be super helpful. And like I said, it's a simple one. You kind of take it, and then it shows you what it is, and has a lot of different commentary after that you can learn from, and then go back into the book and refer to as well. And then if you want to do a deeper dive, you can do a one-on-one with me as well. Mm-hmm.
It's fun to do it. I love quizzes personally. I just noticed this whole chat going like wildfire on the right hand side. I was like,
I know. I'm trying to keep up with it. I'm trying.
Oh my gosh. Well, is it okay if I open the floor to some questions before we move into the membership? Because I feel like there might be some questions here
Let's
from
do
the
it.
audience.
Yeah, stay with me, girl. I love it. Let's get some questions from the
folks,
audience.
now that I know that there is the chat, right?
Yeah.
If you have any questions,
It's me.
I can,
I'm supposed to be pulling them
read
in.
them
I'm
out.
bad girl. Yes. So if you have any questions, whether you're on LinkedIn, whether you're in the live on Zoom, please go ahead and put your questions in the chat, and we will pull them in. And thank you for that, Frida. I'm not low for enthusiasm. And thank the Lord I don't do caffeine, because it would just be crazy. I always say that to my participants in the classroom.
All right, I have a question.
Okay, go for it. Get ahead and get it started. Yeah, for sure.
So because we didn't really get into this that much in the book, but it's definitely an issue. AI, right? Everybody's worried AI is going to take their jobs, or how do I become more useful in the age of AI? How does inquisitive leadership fit into all of that? A more technical workplace where, maybe the humans are sort of hidden behind the Wizard of Oz curtain somewhere.
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a minute, right? Like I said before, decisions are made from emotions, and AI works from logic and data. A lot of times the work that we do, we don't even give it enough credit. Any machine can make a widget, but a machine cannot ensure that the widget is always being created properly, and where there's opportunity to evolve the widget as things around us are evolving. And so I know that there are absolutely some things that we can automate, but there are some things that we just can't replace human beings with. But if we believe that we can be replaced by AI, that's going to be a challenge. The thing of it is we always need the human. You always need the human psyche when we're thinking about high performance. You can only get performance from a machine. You can't get high performance from a machine. High performance only comes from human beings, because we bring intuition, we bring experiences and critical thinking skills that a machine can't bring to situations. And so when we're thinking about this as leaders, we have to look at all sides, which is why it is important that you have a team that is diverse. And when I say diverse, I mean not only by race and by gender, but I'm talking by education. I'm talking about generation, the amount of years that a person has worked, the different environments that they've worked in. I'm saying neurodiverse, the way that people go about doing their work, because they look at it differently. When you have different people, it's like these circles that we're in, Elaine, right? When you have people, it's like everything is, when it's diverse, it looks like a circle. And then everybody in the circle's facing out. because they can see everything from different perspectives, which in the center then creates the whole. That's what's really going on. But when you have teams that have tunnel vision, and tunnel vision comes when you only have people that think a certain way, that have a certain agenda, that have a certain goal, and don't get me preaching on here, but that's when we have blind spots. And when you have blind spots, your organization is in danger of competition and of falling behind when it comes to innovation. Period and end of story. That's it.
Wow, that actually brings me to my next question. I saw something yesterday on LinkedIn where people were talking about how they're even hesitant to, HR directors were even hesitant to mention women in their workplace. And a lot of women are leaving the workplace in the current environment. For people that really believe what you just said, that diverse ideas really make the company stronger, how do they apply some of the ideas from the book to make sure that they do bring those great ideas forward, whether or not the company is open publicly about their commitment to it? Because it's a very weird climate, I think, right now in the workplace.
Yeah. Yeah. When we think about that, we have to think about creating an environment as leaders where people feel comfortable asking questions and contributing. That is the only way that we're going to get the most out of the people that work with us. And I want to say thank you to Lisa, had put a comment out there for us about that comment that we just made, understanding why people do what they do. But then Stan also made a great comment here around AI is used an argument perform absolutely, and it has to be done intentionally. But we have to create the environment for all to exist. And in order for leaders to be able to create the environment where all exists, they have to be open, they have to be curious, they have to be asking questions and understanding what's going on. The only way to really have a good understanding of what's going on is not being the person in the room that you believe has all the answers. The answers are in the room, but they're not just coming from the leader. The leader is part of the team. They're not separate from the team. We have to always remember that. The team as a whole, the leader is a member of the team. And so making sure that everybody is included, but the leader, of course, in the final say so, the leader has the final say. But in order for them to be able to make decisions in a way that is a quality decision, they need to make sure that they have understanding of most things that they can tap into from the people that are around them. I hope I answered your question and didn't go in a circle there.
Yeah, that was a great answer. Yeah, and I'm loving these comments, about the importance of understanding why people do what they do. Really interesting. Do you want to? I don't want to take over the whole program. Do you want to
No, you're
share
good.
some of the offerings, that people can
Yeah.
tap into? Because my next question was really, if people feel they can't do it on their own, sometimes I read a book and then I get all excited and I'm not sure if I can do it on my own. So what can they tap into, to bolster what they learn and to apply it on a day-to-day basis?
So I do have some stuff on that, Elaine. I absolutely do, that I'm going to show people in just a minute. So you're doing a really good segue for that. You actually helped me with the Q&A section, which I was going to do in a few minutes, but we already kind of helped with that. But there's a couple of things, and I'll pull it up in a few minutes. But let me just talk about it at least with you, so you know what's going on, and you can ask me some questions if you have some questions around it. And Suzanne, in the Zoom, if you could put a link in the chat. So that people can access the membership page and the book page on the website, so that they can kind of see what we're talking about here for a minute. But here we go. So one of the things that I have is a membership. So we're creating an Inquisitive Leadership membership. And basically what that is, it is a yearly membership. You can do a monthly subscription or a yearly subscription. And basically what that is, it's going to give you quite a few resources that are going to help you to be able to lean into these inquisitive leadership principles. We're going to have a weekly journal prompt, which is going to be a question that I will send out every Friday or so, that will ask you a question that makes you think about things that maybe you experienced during the week, maybe some things that you can reflect on from the book that will make you go back and read the book, but that you need to answer, and that really tap into a deeper perspective of you understanding who you are as a leader, and not only as a leader, as an inquisitive leader. There's also going to be quarterly one-on-one coaching that will be included in that you would be able to set up with me. But the one thing that I think is great in this, there's a few, but this is one, is we're going to create a dedicated Slack channel. It's a private channel for Slack for everybody that's a member that is able to go in and actually bring their own case studies of things that are going on in the office space with them. I may plant some case studies that I ask leaders about that they may be able to relate to, that gets the conversation going and seeing how they're tackling these different things. And excuse me. And so that Slack channel is also going to be a place for you to be able to bring some of your biggest challenges or bring your biggest wins, right? What's going on? What's worked for you? Because that actually helps people to be able to grow as well. Then there'll also be an opportunity for us to meet monthly. That is the sweet spot. We will have a monthly cohort meeting where we come together live on Zoom, and we're going to do a mastermind. I'll do a teach on something for about 15 or 20 minutes that comes from one of the concepts in the book, and then we're going to do a mastermind. So everybody's going to bring their biggest business challenge, and we're going to pick the top 2 or 3 to go through in that session and work through live. And so that is invaluable, being able to do that once a month with a group, and it will happen every month. And then those things can actually continue to live on in the Slack channel. There may be some things that we didn't vote on that month that that people wanted to work through, and they could do that in the Slack channel. But it's really building a community where we're supporting each other and really making inquisitive leadership a new leadership characteristic and principle that people can use. And then, of
That
course,
sounds so much fun. It really, yeah, just the idea. I have found these communities to be very valuable because people are very candid and you can talk about things that you might hesitate with your colleagues because you feel a little more vulnerable at work than offline. So, wow, thank you for doing that. It just seems like such a good idea.
Yeah, we are. Thank you, Frida, and thank you, Lanisha, for that, and Patricia. Oh my gosh, everybody's on here. Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited about that. And I'm actually going to show what the website looks like in a moment and give everybody an opportunity to sign up. We are doing a founding member rate to start, which is going to be $99 to start. I mean, and that's going to be for a monthly for, it's going to be monthly, or you could pay the lower rate of $9.99 for the whole year. And let me tell you something, my coaching rate starts at $500 an hour. So that's like 2 coaching sessions, and you're getting 4 coaching sessions with me, plus you're getting the Slack channel, plus you're getting the monthly cohort meeting. I mean, the list goes on, and you're creating a community that is invaluable. And it will be a diverse community, which is what I love about it. It will be individual professionals. It'll be small business owners. It'll even be people that are from the corporate space, or folks that are just starting out in leadership. That's the beauty of it, because we can learn from each other no matter where we are in our journey. I learn from my clients all the time. Even the new supervisors, the newbies that are just getting out there. I learn from them too, because they think a little bit differently from me. And I love that, because sometimes I walk away and I go, I needed to hear that today. I need to be a little bit more open. So, yeah, I think it's a great thing. Thank you for asking about that. And Elaine, I have to say thank you for being here and asking us all these questions. And you certainly hang out with us in the background here. But I do want to show folks what some things that we've got going on, and give opportunity. But before you go, I'm going to give opportunity for people to ask any more questions. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, and we will get them out there and be able to answer them. But before Elaine leaves, I just have to thank Elaine for all that she has been for me. And this book would never be what it is without Elaine's prompting. When I'm telling you courageous curiosity, this woman has courageous curiosity. Because there were moments where I was like, I was sitting in the corner like a Cheshire cat. I kept growling at her, and she was like, you're not scaring me off. I'm going to keep asking. And I would be sitting here curled up in a ball afterward. And that's why she's working on me about doing this book about all this trauma that I experienced, but not ready to do that right now. But you have been wonderful.
You have about 5 books in you, honestly. Yeah, I mean, you were so open, and I think there is a courage to writing a book, and you had it, and it comes through in the pages. So if you have not read it yet and you're ordering your copy today, I think you're going to feel Frederica channeling through it. So thank you so much for having me. It was so great to be part of this event, and Looking forward to seeing the community take shape. I could just tell by the warmth of all the comments on the side what a great community it will be. So let me turn it over to you because I know you want to show the website. I'm going to jump off,
That's
but
okay.
well, thank you so much, Frederica, and thank you, everybody. This was just lovely. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.